Hey, this is Josh X reacting for Dojo 7, and today we'll be reviewing another TED Talk, The Gift and the Power of Emotional Courage by Susan Davis. As always, we love to hear your thoughts and video suggestions in the comments, and never forget that you can check out dojo7.com for apparel and other ways to support. Let's get to it.
Hello everyone. Sawubona. In South Africa, where I come from, Sawubona is the Zulu word for hello. There's a beautiful and powerful intention behind the word because Sawubona literally translated means I see you, and by seeing you, I bring you into being. So beautiful.
Thoughts and trends translate across the diaspora, and there's also a Black American cultural tradition of I see you. And we just say I see you, but it has a similar meaning to what this white South African is sharing from the Zulu language.
Beautiful. Imagine being greeted like that. But what does it take in the way we see ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions, and our stories that help us to thrive in an increasingly complex and fraught world? This crucial question has been at the center of my life's work, because how we deal with our inner world drives everything, every aspect of how we love, how we live, how we parent, and how we lead. The conventional view of emotions as good or bad, positive or negative, is rigid. And rigidity in the face of complexity is toxic. We need greater levels of emotion.
That's a bar. Rigidity in the face of complexity is toxic. I like that. I feel like Khaled. I like that.
And I like that.
Emotional agility for true resilience and thriving. My journey with this calling began not in the hallowed halls of a university, but in the messy, tender business of life. I grew up in the white suburbs of apartheid South Africa, a country and community committed to not seeing, to denial. It's denial that makes 50 years of racist legislation possible, while people convince themselves that they are doing nothing wrong.
It's denial that makes 50 years of racist legislation possible, while people convince themselves they're doing nothing wrong. This is one of the central flaws of the colorblind approach.
Whoa, I don't see color.
Or the I don't see color approach, or the not acknowledging of differences in shared history and differences in, current treatment. It is this sweeping under the rug of different experiences that make injustices possible. Now, what is the obligation of one human being to give a fuck about somebody else's experience? That is fair grounds for debate. But I do not think that it can be debated that if you are not willing to say these two things or these two experiences are different, that you setting the stage for bullshit to happen.
And yet, I first learned of the destructive power of denial at a personal level, before I understood what it was doing to the country of my birth. My father died.
When I hear people from South Africa talk about apartheid and speak what appears to be from an ignorant American perspective outside looking in with some frankness about racial prejudice, I see parallels in how Germany as a nation has approached the Holocaust and how South Africa is starting to approach the racial injustice of apartheid. Now you're talking, different timelines, and Germany is much farther away from the Holocaust than South Africa is from apartheid. But I wonder if dealing with that reality is going to become a central tenet of the national identity in South Africa, and that they're going to make, positive strides in that regard. Now, if I'm off, educate me. Please correct my ignorance. The comments are there. If we got any South Africans, Germans, or people who are more versed in world history and sentiment than your boy, but that's definitely my perspective at the time.
died on a Friday. He was 42 years old and I was...
And shout out Nelson Mandela.
This one is for Mandela.
And Chris Tucker from Rush Hour.
15. My mother whispered to me to go and say goodbye to my father before I went to school. So I put my backpack down and walked the passage that ran through to where the heart of our home, my father lay dying of cancer. His eyes were closed, but he knew I was there. In his presence, I had always felt seen. I told him I loved him, said goodbye, and headed off for my day. At school, I drifted from science to mathematics to history to biology, as my father slipped from the world. From May to July to September to November, I went about with my usual smile. I didn't drop a single grade. When asked how I was doing, I would shrug and say, okay. I was praised for being strong. I was the master of being okay. But back home,
the experience that she's describing is the emotional experience of, I would argue, the majority of men in America. And that there is this expected and assumed emotional denial that no matter what's going on, you're okay. Which leads to underdeveloped processing and communication skills that motherfuckers turn 30 and have to figure out how to fix so that we can be good husbands and good fathers and lead good families. But this traumatic experience that she's describing, I think is the life experience day to day for a lot of men and a lot of people. But you know, I'm a man, so sometimes I speak from the cisgendered heterosexual male experience, and I'm Black.
struggled. My father hadn't been able to keep his small business going during his illness, and my mother alone was grieving the love of her life, trying to raise 3 children, and the creditors were knocking. We felt as a family financially and emotionally ravaged. And I
mean, she's like literally describing the day-to-day experience for a lot of Black people, a lot of Black families. If the mother is not grieving the loss of the love of her life, a lot of times she is angry over the difference between her current experience with who she's had children with and the expectation that she had of raising children with a love of her life. And, you know, that's boiling stuff down and oversimplifying and painting with broad strokes, but you get the general caricature, hopefully.
I began to spiral down, isolated, fast. I started to use food to numb my pain, binging and purging, refusing to accept the full weight of my grief.
Binging and purging are bulimia terms. She might be saying that she had a eating disorder. Everybody does all type of different things to numb, you know what I mean? Alcohol and weed and food and sex and, you know, high risk behavior, all in the same bag.
No one knew, and in a culture that values relentless positivity, I thought that no one wanted to know. But one person did not buy into my story of triumph over grief. My 8th grade English teacher fixed me with burning blue eyes as she handed out blank notebooks. She said, write what you're feeling. Tell the truth. Write like nobody's reading. And just like that, I was invited to show up authentically to my grief and pain. It was a simple act, but nothing short of a revolution for me. It was this revolution that started in this blank notebook 30 years ago that shaped my life's work, the secret, silent correspondence with myself. Like a gymnast, I started to move beyond the rigidity of denial.
Journaling is a life-changing practice. I encourage people to try it. There's something like real powerful about being able to not only be honest with yourself, but see yourself as a third party. Journaling, if you keep it up as a consistent practice, is a lot like self-therapy.
Into what I've now come to call emotional agility. Life's beauty is inseparable from its fragility. We are young until we are not.
Bars!
Now listen! That's called motherfucking bars, nigga! You know nothing about that!
She just got bars! Most of the most beautiful things in life are very fragile. I'm digging it.
We walk down the street sexy until one day we realize that we are unseen. We nag our children and one day realize that there is silence where that child once was, now making his or her way in the world. We are healthy until a diagnosis brings us to our knees. The only certainty is uncertainty, and yet we are not navigating this frailty successfully or sustainably. The World Health Organization tells us that depression is now the single leading cause of disability globally, outstripping cancer, outstripping heart disease. And at a time of greater complexity, unprecedented technological, political, and economic change, we are seeing how people's tendency is more and more to lock down into rigid responses to their emotions. On the one hand, we might obsessively brood on our feelings, getting stuck inside our heads, hooked on being right, or victimized by our newsfeed. On the other, we might bottle our emotions, pushing them aside, and permitting only those emotions deemed legitimate. Natural emotions are now seen as good or bad. And being positive has become a new form of moral correctness. People with cancer are automatically told to just stay positive. Women to stop being so angry. And the list goes on. It's a tyranny. It's a tyranny of positivity.
The tyranny of positivity. Yo, we might have to see if Susan David is available for a ghostwriting contract, because mama got bars.
Cruel, unkind, and ineffective. And we do it ourselves, and we do it to others. If there's one common feature of brooding, bottling, or forced positivity, it's this. They are all rigid responses. And if there's a single lesson we can learn from the inevitable fall of apartheid, it is that rigid denial doesn't work. It's unsustainable for individuals, for families, for societies. And as we watch the ice caps melt, it is unsustainable for our planet. Research on emotional suppression shows that when emotions are pushed aside or ignored, they get stronger. Psychologists call this amplification, like that delicious chocolate cake in the refrigerator. The more you try to ignore it, the greater its hold on you. You might think you're in control of unwanted emotions when you ignore them, but in fact, they control you. Internal pain always comes out. Always. And who pays the price? We do. Our children, our colleagues, our communities. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-happiness. I like being happy. I'm a pretty happy person. But when we push aside normal emotions to embrace false positivity, we lose our capacity to develop skills to deal with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. I've had hundreds of people tell me what they don't want to feel. They say things like, I don't want to try because I don't want to feel disappointed. Or I just want this feeling to go away. I understand, I said.
I'm gonna start. So, losing the ability to deal with the world as it is, right? Life is a mixed bag. Life is a journey of peaks and valleys, and that is an immutable fact. And I agree that when you lose the ability to be at peace with negative experiences and emotions, you're damaging your way to approach life as it is and will come. And a way that I have learned over the years to think about emotions as opposed to buckets of good and bad, or, positive or negative, even though it's cool to acknowledge which ones are pleasant and unpleasant, is just like weather. Rain is not bad. Snow is not bad. A hot day is, not bad. It's just a part of living in a world that has seasons. I think that our emotional seasons can be viewed in the same way, and that can offer a perspective that leads to an ability to better take things as they really are, which I think leads to a more fulfilling existence, a more complete existence. And if you are the type who is pushing for success, more successful habits, because you're better able to stay consistent no matter whether it's raining outside or not.
They say things like, I don't want to try because I don't want to feel disappointed. Or I just want this feeling to go away. I understand, I say to them, but you have dead people's goals. Only dead people never get unwanted or inconvenienced by their feelings. Only dead people never get stressed, never get broken hearts, never experience the disappointment that comes with fate.
Yo, we're gonna have to drop some of them horns and that Juan DeMarco drop, because Shawty got like bars. I love it.
Feelings. Only dead people never get stressed, never get broken hearts, never experience the disappointment that comes with failure. tough emotions are part of our contract with life. You don't get to have a meaningful career or raise a family.
Tough emotions are part of our contract with life.
Or leave the world
5 mics. We ain't even done. 5 mics.
a better place without stress and discomfort. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. So how do we begin to dismantle rigidity and embrace emotional agility? As that young schoolgirl, when I leaned into those blank pages, I started to do away with feelings of what I should be experiencing, and instead started to open my heart to what I did feel: pain and grief and loss and regret. Research now shows that the radical acceptance of all of our emotions, even the messy, difficult ones, is the cornerstone to resilience, thriving, and true, authentic happiness. But emotional agility is more than just an acceptance of emotions. We also know that accuracy matters. In my own research, I found that words are essential. We often use quick and easy labels to describe our feelings. I'm stressed is the most common one I hear. But there's a world of difference between stress and disappointment, or stress and that knowing dread of I'm in the wrong career. When we label our emotions accurately, we are more able to discern the precise cause of our feelings. And what scientists call the readiness potential in our brain is activated, allowing us to take concrete steps. But
I used to teach an emotional intelligence curriculum to elementary school students, and expanding the emotional vocabulary and just having more words to describe and understand how you're feeling is a big part to understanding yourself, and also being able to either take the right perspective or right action to experience the variety of emotions. So she's spot on there. If this is something you're interested in doing, something that I have done and that I think is great is get a list of emotional words. There's some available online. Maybe we'll end up putting some on the website or in the link below. We'll see what happens with that. And just staple it to your wall and get in a habit of reviewing it to see if any of the words there describe how you're feeling, or, just internalizing these words. So expanding your emotional vocabulary is a great, 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 simple, easy step to building this emotional agility that Susan David is talking about. And then your emotional intelligence just overall. There's a difference between stressed and anxious, or defeated, or full of anticipation,
not just any steps, the right steps for us. Because our emotions are data. Our emotions contain flashing lights to things that we care about. We tend not to feel strong emotion to stuff that doesn't mean anything in our worlds. If you feel rage when you read the news, that rage is a signpost perhaps that you value equity and fairness, and an opportunity to take active steps to shape your life in that direction. When we are open to the difficult emotions, we are able to generate responses that are values aligned. But there's an important caveat. Emotions are data, they are not directives. We can show up to and mine our emotions for their values without needing to listen to them. Just like I can show up to my son in his frustration with his baby sister, but not endorse his idea that he gets to give her away to the first stranger he sees in a shopping mall. We own our emotions, they don't own us. When we internalize the difference between how I feel in all my wisdom and what I do in a values-aligned action, we generate the pathway to our best selves via our emotions. So what does this look like in practice? When you feel a strong, tough emotion, don't race for the emotional exits. Learn its contours, show up to the journal of your hearts. What is the emotion telling you? And try not to say I am as in.
Curiosity is also important. If you can approach these emotions with curiosity, that allows sitting with difficult or unpleasant emotions easier, and it allows for sitting with pleasant or enjoyable emotions more pleasurable. Being curious about, how does this feel? Are there any physical sensations that are accompanying this? What does this make me want to do in response? I think the default curiosity is we try to figure out where it's coming from or what triggered it, and that's fine too. But even outside of that, just being curious about what is it like to not run away and to fully experience anger or rejection or jealousy or betrayal. And outside of the trigger, outside of any response, just being curious about, like, who this emotional person is that's with me. And, are they hot? Are they cold? Is my heart beating faster? Do I feel it in my stomach? It allows you to take a moment to be present in that emotion. And then generally what happens more often than not, if you're able to reach that point, it begins to subside. And then you can also take that next step and acknowledge, and this is a signal that, some expectation or boundary or desire has been violated or fulfilled. And you can do that investigative work if you want to and have the time and have the emotional energy, because that does, tax your resources. But just being able to sit with it as it is, independent of any other context, is a healthy step.
As in, I am angry or I am sad. When you say I am, it makes you sound as if you are the emotion. Whereas you are you, and the emotion is a data source. Instead, try to notice the feeling for what it is. I'm noticing that I'm feeling sad, or I'm noticing that I'm feeling angry. These are essential skills for us, our families, our communities. They're also critical to the workplace. In my research, when I looked at what helps people to bring the best of themselves to work, I found a powerful key contributor: individualized consideration. When people are allowed to feel their emotional truth, engagement, creativity, and innovation flourish in the organization. Diversity isn't just people, it's also what's inside people, including diversity of emotion. The most agile, resilient...
That's really big for all my DEI people. Diversity of emotion, and it's okay for different people to have different emotions about different things, and having a type of environment where it is safe for people to experience different emotional responses to different things is healthy. And that is not always the case for everybody. Generally, the lower you are down the marginalized spectrum, your emotional responses to what's going on in a company or in a business or in a team may not be as readily accepted. So that's definitely something for my DEI champions, my managers, my HR people to really think about and consider, is what types of emotions and reactions do we allow within this team or this company. And then if, it's always levels, there's always the next level. What types of emotions do we allow to be expressed?
Individuals, teams, organizations, families, communities are built on an openness to the normal human emotions. It's this that allows us to say, what is my emotion telling me? Which action will bring me towards my values? Which will take me away from my values? Emotional agility is the ability to be with your emotions, with curiosity.
And you don't have to take on the burden that because something is expressed that it has to be acted upon, right? Sometimes just the expression is healthy. Sometimes there needs to be action. But if we can't even get to the place where people are comfortable being their full and authentic selves, which includes the way that things affect their emotions, the question of whether this is something that needs to be acted upon or experienced and appreciated for the experienced and then moved away from never even gets to occur.
It took me a while to understand the power of how he guided me through those nights. What he showed me is that courage is not an absence of fear. Courage is fear walking. Neither of us knew that in 10 short years he would be gone.
Bars. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking, or walking in spite of fear, or moving in spite of.
And the time for each of us is all too precious and all too brief. But when our moment comes to face our fragility in that ultimate time, it will ask us, are you agile? Are you agile? Let the moment be an unreserved yes. A yes born of a lifelong correspondence with your own heart. And in seeing yourself, because in seeing yourself, you are also able to see others too. The only sustainable way forward in a fragile, beautiful world. Sawubona, and thank you.
We love it. We love it. We love it. This was a really good one. Thank you for watching. That's going to be it for the reaction. We'll make sure that we keep the link to this video if you want to watch it by itself in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead, throw us a like, and you can also subscribe if you want to stay up to date with what's coming out on the channel. If you think that anybody in your network would find this valuable, please share it with them. As always, never forget that you can check out dojo7.com for apparel and other ways to support. I'm Josh Axe, reacting on behalf of Dojo 7, and that's gonna do it. I'm out. Peace.